I wasn't smart when I was born. In fact, I was a cripple and a simpleton. I couldn't walk, so I dragged myself around the forest floor, never straying from my mother's presence. I felt at the time she never cared much for my siblings and I, mostly letting us fend for ourselves. But I realize now she kept a careful eye on us. She was cold, distant, and dumb like me, but she knew how to watch for large animals and other potential threats as my brothers, sisters, and I slowly figured out how to feed ourselves. It seems cruel in retrospect, and many of my siblings died young. Life was hard, crawling in the dirt on the forest floor, treating anything remotely edible as a banquet to be cherished. As I slowly grew, she eventually disappeared, leaving me and two of my remaining brothers alone at a very young age. They both perished shortly after. But somehow I managed to survive against all odds, crawling in the mud and struggling against my disability, finding food and shelter anywhere I could. I slowly learned how to use my disabilities to my advantage, setting ambushes and traps for small game, but I was still fundamentally an idiot, and no matter how clever I thought I was back then, failure was common, and life continued to be difficult. Surviving in the jungle while mentally disabled and handicapped was mostly a factor of sheer luck. Though at the time I thought myself to be quite adept, I never stayed in one place for long, and I moved very slowly but carefully. My diet consisted of anything I could find laying around which was edible, mostly small animals I could catch, but I could go hungry for very long periods of time. Eventually, I stumbled on a small stream with an even smaller cave nearby. I made it my home for a while. It wasn't much, but it was well hidden and provided some sense of security. I would drag myself out to the stream and bask in the warm tropical sun at times, take naps under trees, and eat as often as I could manage. Those were my simple pleasures in life back then. Predators were always a threat, and being crippled, running was not an option, so I learned to hide. I learned to read my environment. I learned when to be loud and when to be quiet. And against all odds, I somehow survived. Once again, in retrospect, I mistook luck for cleverness. And that would have been my entire life, up until I starved or finally ran out of luck. And that is where my story really begins, where it should have ended. I was crawling along the forest floor searching for something, anything to eat. It had been many days, and I had a furious hunger.